Was Emily Hewitson booted off Big Brother for being conservative, for hinting that she might dish the dirt on Boris Johnson, or that she'd got dirt on Boris Johnson, or was she booted off for being boring? And my money is firmly on the last option. She was dull as ditch water, and she was followed on screen by a self-absorbed George who peddled conspiracies and then managed to get himself ejected. I am not a fan of reality TV. I've been on reality TV. It could be great, but it is predicated on two things. You can take my word for it. First, casting is locked into a script that the participants do not see. Each is assigned an archetype they do not know they're playing, and it takes work to subvert it. I felt that shift happen when I was on The Circle, and I know the moment when my role changed and my options changed. As for the interest, the only potentially interesting thing about Emily was whether she would be indiscreet about Boris. She was not, and she had nothing else to offer. And the line that she was booted off for being a Tory is convenient nonsense. She was booted for being boring. Now, let's start with the mechanics. This series opened with a brutal twist. Viewers were asked on night one to tag housemates for immediate risk, and the edit that most viewers saw of Emily was a 1-minute clip cut almost entirely around her politics and Tory branding. She had been photographed with Nigel Farage, had been to Christmas drinks at Boris Johnson's house, had a respectable social media footprint, and had a ready-made villain label from the crowd. The boos confirmed how the producers had framed her. Then the evil eye device caroled the three at risk into an exit room and forced them to vote a peer out. When asked what they would do with the 100,000, Emily said borrow. Sam talked about a home near Disneyland. Caroline talked about her elderly parents and new patio doors. On television, moral arithmetic is ruthless. Bora loses to patio doors every time. Caroline first volunteered, Big Brother insisted on a vote, and Emily's own pick of Caroline was outnumbered. Sam wobbled, cried later, and still voted Emily. That was the show's logic at work. Now, whether or not any of them were prompted, I suspect they were, but to the claim, Emily argues she was edited as the Tory villain and never given a chance to show the rest of herself. There's partial truth in that. First night edits are caricatures by design. Producers must paint in primaries so that the audience can tell characters apart, but there is a longer history that undermines the martyr story. Anne Widdecombe finished runner-up in Celebrity Big Brother. Nigel Farage and Matt Hancock both placed third in different formats that reward audience judgment over time. Conservative figures are not automatically catnip for eviction. What matters is narrative unity, and the audience tolerates your politics if the subplot, warmth, wit, conflict resolution or surprise pay off. In Emily's case, the only tease surprise was whether she could gossip about or whether she would gossip about Boris. She didn't remove that bait, and what remained was a thin character sheet dominated by a single label. Consider the counterpoint. George, a parish councillor, charming to some, combustible to others, repeatedly warned for language and shown debating homelessness, shoplifting, and LGBTQ representation in children's films with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer. He then crossed the line that ITV refused to air and was removed. Of course he was. Producers kept George until they had to cut him because he generated story beats. Emily generated nothing. Reality TV will always privilege plot density. If you don't supply it, you are ballast. And casting and editing are not identical, but they are married. Casting creates an archetypal bank. Ingenue, mischief maker, mum of the house, provocateur, straight shooter, agent of chaos. Editing manufactures the first impressions that make those archetypes legible. The only ways to beat your casting are to be unexpectedly funny, disarmingly kind in moments of conflict, or to take a principled stand that is not performative. That requires 3 habits from night 1. 1. Answer questions with specificity that reveals values. 2. Show vulnerability without fishing for sympathy. 3. Discover friction without contempt and resolve it publicly. Emily's Bora answer was not value specificity. It was It read as luxury shopping placeholding. She registered as brand management without texture. There's also the maths. Opening night compresses audience attention, and attention is a zero-sum economy. If your introduction devotes 10 minutes of recorded material to a range of topics, but the minute that goes to air is 80% political label and 20% bravado, your public image becomes that label. That is the trade you implicitly accept when you consent to a show built on edits. The correct response is not to blame the existence of the label, but to overwhelm it with memorable human moments the minute you go through the door. The hug that diffuses an argument, the practical joke that lands, the quiet act of service in the kitchen, the perfectly timed quip. The camera forgives almost anything if you make the audience smile. If you demonstrate or capture humanity. Some will say the hate was preloaded. Of course it was. The booze suggested as much. Emily didn't receive a torrent of online abuse, and that is ugly. Well, she did receive a torrent of online abuse, and that is ugly. The Be Kind Brigade often fails its own test. The booze don't evict you. Formats evict you. The format on night one asked for a value statement under pressure and then made three strangers judge each other. Caroline's patio doors beat borrow. That's not ideology, that's story. If Emily had said she would fund a carer's respite week for her mum, sponsor a youth orchestra in Northampton, or pay down a sibling's debt to the penny, the room would have turned. Some politics, different plot. If she played it for humanity rather than for money, she might have got somewhere. What about the argument that men with right of centre views have fared better than women with similar profiles? It's a fair line of inquiry. Henry and Nathan in recent series got to finals while leaning right. It may be that the public is quicker to reframe a right-leaning man as lovable eccentric than a right-leaning woman as anything other than a pantomime villain, a reincarnation of Thatcher. That bias exists in other arenas, but again, the way through is the same. Surprise the audiences into liking you. Reality formats are not academic seminars. They are short-stage tests of charm, generosity, and timing. We should be honest about the secret reason producers liked the idea of Emily. It was not the Tory label on its own, it was the promise of proximity to power and indiscretion. She had been to Boris Johnson's drinks. She had posed with Farage. The tabloids salivated at the idea that she might say something spicy after a glass of wine. And when she did not, the tease collapsed. Without that, what remained was a young professional saying she loves doing things for the plot and then failing to provide one. Two final points. First, I don't begrudge her for trying. She wanted to humanise a label and to prove that a young conservative woman could trade jokes and arguments with people unlike her. That's a worthy goal. The show's welfare team, by all accounts, treated her decently. She'll get dates out of it, a conference pass, a few broadcast hits, and probably a better rate card. The sting will fade, and second, we should resist the comforting story we tell ourselves about why people lose. The temptation is to say the game was rigged by ideology. The harder truth is that television is rigged by entertainment. If you are not interesting, you are gone. So, was she evicted for being a Tory? No, she was evicted for teasing about trash on Boris Johnson. Well, maybe. But really, she was evicted for being boring. In reality TV, you either feed the machine with story, or the machine eats you. Emily mistook the label for the plot. The label never wins, the plot always wins.